Hi everybody and welcome back to Kevin's Upfront Opinion today. So yesterday I was watching a few interviews by Arthur Laffer. Now I'd never heard of Arthur Laffer, never knew anything about him, but I was watching the Telegraph's podcast and a few other podcasts, and Arthur Laffer came on and he was talking about the Laffer Curve. I thought, what? And you're probably all thinking, what the hell is the Laffer Curve? Okay, so the Laffer Curve is to do with tax. Okay, it's to do with tax revenue and tax rates. So it's basically a curve. So if you've got your tax rates at 100%, nobody's going to go to work. Country doesn't bring in any revenue. If you have it at 0%, okay, everybody's going to go to work. Okay. But the country will bring in no revenue because there's no percentage. So basically, it's a curve that goes around like that, up to the top. Okay, so the higher it goes, it'll shrink back in. Okay, and the lower it goes, the lower the amount of revenue it is at the end of the day. And it's basically a simple principle that if you've got any common sense and think about it, you think, yeah, that's realistic. Now, he's like about 85 years old, something like that. And he's in the UK. He's been in the UK because he's brought out a new book. And he's been helping, I know he's helped out Trump before. I think he helped out Reagan, Margaret Thatcher. So he's helped out a lot of prime ministers and presidents over the years. And I was listening to him and thinking about his theory, because he basically said that our current Labour government have not got one single shred of common sense between the lot of them, especially our current Chancellor. Didn't use them exact words, so I'm putting it together to shorten it up a bit. Okay. But it was words to that extent at the end of the day. And he was saying that the Bank of England should have never had independence. You know, the government should be in charge of it all at the end of the day because they're the ones that are accountable. It's a bit like the argument people put to do with the EU. Nobody's accountable at the end of the day. We can't hold anybody accountable. It's not like we can hold the Bank of England accountable if they mess up interest rates and inflation. The only people we can hold accountable is the government, and that has nothing to do with them because they're independent. So he was speaking about it, and I started thinking about it, and I thought, is our tax system here in the UK, is it a fair system? And the reality is, no, it's not. Okay, and it's never going to be fair because it's so complicated that even unless you've got an accountant, you can't understand it. And even most accountants can't understand. I've got an accountant, and after time, even my own accountant doesn't understand it. Okay, you know, it's not because he's a bad accountant. He's a very good accountant, to be honest. He gets paid enough money from me for doing his job. So I started thinking about it. And this is my theory, that the problem in the UK is we've got a tax system that doesn't benefit the rich and doesn't benefit the poor. It penalises both, no matter what side of the coin you're on, because the problem is taxes are going up, and obviously we've got a budget coming up, and it's been said that taxes are going to go up again, okay, which means if you're rich, what are you going to do? Are you going to carry on just ploughing more of your money to the exchequer? No, you're not. You're going to put your money offshore, or you're going to move abroad so the government can't touch your money. No different to Jim Ratcliffe. Okay, nothing against Jim Ratcliffe and Man United, who lives in Monaco. He's moved his money abroad, so he doesn't have to worry about the ridiculous tax system that we've got in the UK, which The problem with that means there's less revenue coming into the exchequer, which then means the poor can't be helped, because nobody wants to be poor at the end of the day. My view is every poor person wants to be rich, and every rich person wants to be richer, because nobody wants to be poor and struggling at the end of the day. They want to provide the best life for their family and their children and their grandchildren or great-grandchildren, whatever it may be. So Arthur Laffer, or we'll call him Arthur for now, had this theory where he basically said, for a country, what you want to do is have your tax system as low as possible, reaching the broadest amount of people to bring the maximum amount of revenue in. I thought, okay. And he said the reason for that is because you reach the maximum amount of people and you'll generally bring in more revenue. You'll help the economy grow faster. And he said, I'm pretty sure it was under Ronald Reagan, but they did this in the 1980s in America. And that's exactly what happened. It was the most prosperous stage for America ever. The amount of businesses that were coming up. And it's like he said on the podcast, how many big name businesses are starting up in the UK? The likes of your Apples or your Spotify's, or there's probably loads more that you could think of. There aren't any. So they tend to be small to medium enterprises who are going to get hit because they haven't got the big solicitors. So the reality of what needs to happen, and this is what he said, if we bring it down, the richer end up paying more money in tax, they'll employ more people, and then you can help the poor. But the only way to improve our system is to help the rich, because if you help the rich out, which I know is never a popular idea, helping the multimillionaires and billionaires who have lots of money, because I think they pay something like 60-70% of the tax that goes into the country. It's something ridiculous. They pay the majority anyway, the top 1%. You can then help out the poor. And you can do all these gimmicks, like if you remember, when Labour were in power last time, when you had like the kids' clubs and everything, which ended up getting closed down by the Conservatives. You can do all of those types of things. But if you have high tax rates and you have businesses going out of business and you have people refusing to go to work and rather getting themselves signed off sick, which in today's climate is fairly easy to do. Government has no money, can't help anybody out, you end up going bankrupt, and like it's been alleged, the Labour Party are going to end up going to the IMF to get bailed out, which helps nobody out at the end of the day. So, question is John Laffer correct? Not John Laffer, Arthur Laffer correct, when he says what the government needs to do is not increase tax, but decrease tax. And that's things like corporation tax, income tax, anything to do with PAYE. Okay, all of it cut. You're not talking about massive cuts. 45p tax, another classic one. Cut it. And then the argument is revenues will go back up because people will go back out to work. Businesses start making more money. They'll be able to start employing more people. Instead of these stupid 0-hour contracts or putting people on part-time contracts, they'll put them on full-time contracts. And everybody's happy. So let us know in the comments down below what you think. Is he right or is he wrong? I appreciate a lot of poor people are probably going to say, no, he's wrong, because all he wants to do is help out his mates and the rich. That may be the case, but if you don't help out the rich, you can't help out the poor. So let us know in the comments what you think. But for now, thanks for listening, and I'll speak to you all again a bit later.